I was standing on my own front porch with my hands in the air, red laser dots crawling across my chest, rifles pointed at me, and all I could think was, this is how I die. Not in some dark alley, not because I did something wrong, but because my neighbor decided to tell the cops I kidnapped my own baby. That's how fast it all unraveled. One minute I was carrying my son into our new home for the very first time, the next I was on my knees in cuffs, my wife screaming, my newborn crying, and my whole life flashing in front of me. When we first bought the house on Maple Drive, I thought I'd made it. A little red Mustang in the driveway, a fresh mortgage, and a family I loved more than life itself. That first day home from the hospital, I was exhausted but proud, carrying my son in his tiny carrier, Angela smiling through her fatigue. We barely made it halfway up the driveway before she appeared. Linda Vaughn, our neighbor. Imagine every stereotype of a Karen rolled into one bleach blonde hair, fried from dye jobs, a neon green tracksuit, and that permanent scowl of someone who thinks the entire world is out to get them. Instead of congratulations or welcome to the neighborhood, the first words out of her mouth were Venom Anchor Baby, Ghetto Dynasty, not in my neighborhood. I froze. My wife bristled. And then Linda pulled out her phone and dialed 911, screaming about a suspicious black man in a flashy red car, claiming she was witnessing a kidnapping. I can still feel the cold sweat when those patrol lights lit up our house. 2 officers got out, one young and jumpy, one older and black, who looked at me with a weary recognition like he'd seen this play before. He asked for IDs, confirmed we lived there, congratulated us on the baby. But Linda just stood across the street smug as hell, like she'd done her civic duty. And as the cops left, she gave us this look, a promise that it was only the beginning. And she kept that promise. Cameras in her window pointed straight at our front door. Anonymous notes stuffed in our mailbox about our loud music or late trash cans. We didn't even know the neighbors yet, but she was already painting us as trouble. I was paranoid, triple-checking the locks at night. My wife pulled the car straight into the garage so she wouldn't have to feel those eyes on us. What should have been the happiest, sleep-deprived weeks of new parenthood felt poisoned. And then came the night that shattered any illusion of safety. It started with a low thumping sound, then the walls vibrating. I thought it was a car until the sky lit up. A helicopter, a spotlight fixed on our house. And then the street filled with armored trucks and men in black gear, rifles in hand. The bullhorn boomed, "This is the police. Come out with your hands up. Hostage situation. Armed suspect." My wife looked at me like she'd seen death itself. She grabbed our baby and cried, "What's happening?" But I knew, of course I knew, it was Linda. I stepped out slowly, hands up, shaking so badly I thought I'd collapse. I was tackled, cuffed, shoved face down onto the concrete while men stormed my house with flashbangs, rifles, shouting commands. My wife was sobbing, holding our screaming baby, and all I could do was beg them to believe me. It's my house. That's my wife. That's my son. She lied. She's been harassing us. Eventually they realized no hostages, no weapons, just a family. They arrested her for filing a false report, for swatting. But the next day, she was out on bail, a slap on the wrist, and we were left with the trauma. I hit my lowest point after that. Angela barely slept, jumping at every sound. She pulled our son's bassinet right next to our bed, convinced Linda would find another way to take him from us. And I sat in the dark one night, scrolling my phone, wondering how the hell I'd gone from the American dream to this nightmare. I started questioning everything. Maybe I was cursed. Maybe moving here was a mistake. Maybe I couldn't protect them. For the first time, I actually wondered if we should just pack up and leave, give her the victory. But then I thought of my son, tiny chest rising and falling utterly defenseless, and I knew I couldn't run. That's when I remembered an old college acquaintance, David Miller. Back then, he was just the smart guy in debate club. Now, he was the director of the FBI. It sounded insane, like some desperate Hail Mary, but I dialed his office. And when his voice came on the line, deeper now but still familiar, I just unloaded everything, the racist rant, the surveillance, the swatting. Silence on his end, and then his voice changed. Cold steel hard. Send me everything you have. From this moment, it's a federal matter. Swatting is domestic terrorism. This woman just volunteered for the case we've been waiting for. For weeks, nothing seemed to happen. But then I started noticing the black sedans parked down the street, the men in bad suits just hanging around. Then a van bristling with antennas. Then 2 people in suits knocking on her door, badges flashing. Soon Linda looked pale, shaken. I overheard her screaming into her phone about frozen accounts and audits. Then the EPA posted a notice on her door. Then her accounting job mysteriously placed her on leave. One by one, the pillars of her life crumbled. I'll be honest, it was terrifying and deeply satisfying at the same time. But Linda wasn't done. She shifted tactics. She started posting anonymously online, warning neighbors about strange activity at 124 Maple Drive. She printed flyers calling us a drug house, taped them to lampposts. And then came the worst hit, Child Protective Services knocking at our door, citing an anonymous tip of child neglect. Angela nearly collapsed on the spot. That woman had gone after the one thing we couldn't defend with cameras or affidavits, our baby. We hired the best family lawyer we could find, a bulldog named Ms. Dubose. She built a fortress of evidence around us, affidavits from doctors, relatives, bosses, even our OB/GYN. Security footage, police reports, everything. At the CPS hearing, she calmly dismantled the accusations. She presented an FBI dossier showing Linda's long history of false complaints, restraining orders, lawsuits. And when the supervisor read that file, he closed it with a sigh and dismissed the case. Effective immediately. Our son was safe. But the damage, the fear, the humiliation that lingered. The final straw came one Saturday afternoon. Angela screamed from the living room. I ran in and saw Linda standing on her lawn, smiling, holding a rifle across her chest. Not aimed, but deliberate. A message. My blood ran cold. Before the FBI team could even arrive, a routine patrol car turned the corner. The officer saw her, instantly pulled his weapon, and within minutes she was cuffed again. The rifle was just a pellet gun, but it didn't matter. That was the break we needed. In court, Linda tried to play the victim. Claimed we were harassing her, that she was scared of us. But Ms. Dubose laid out a timeline so detailed the judge couldn't ignore it, swatting, stalking CPS the gun. The judge leaned over her glasses and said, "This isn't a neighborhood dispute, this is a campaign of terror." And with that she granted a permanent restraining order, 500 yards of distance, surrender of all weapons, and 30 days to sell her house and leave Maple Drive. I'll never forget walking out of that courtroom, the order clutched in my hand, Angela holding our baby close. Across the street, the monster who had turned our dream into a nightmare had finally been stripped of her power. There was no celebration, no relief, just a silence that felt like the first breath after almost drowning. And if there's one lesson I learned through all of this, it's that sometimes the scariest battles aren't fought in dark alleys, they're fought right outside your front door, and the only way to win is to stand your ground.